I supplied a picture of the Ark House, which is this structure back here. And I think Shaw, it just mesmerized Shaw or whatever, but he then told everyone that my topic was going to be not on the Detroits, but on the Anna Held Ark House. So the Green Dragon Colony is really what the community is called. And so I will run through this and give you a little more information. When I did my Detroit talk last year, I supplied a picture, and you'll see the picture in a little while, of the Ark House. And Shav really liked the picture, and instead of announcing the month before it that I would be presenting on Detroit's, he said I'd be presenting on Anna Held's Ark House. So I decided to do a talk on Anna Held's Green Dragon Colony and Ark House. In 1894, after really loving going to the Cove and she was a governess, and she would take the kids, she'd rent a cart, someone would come and pick them up in a horse-drawn cart, and they would travel for basically 2 hours to get up to the Cove from their home in an area that was at that time New San Diego, later to just be considered downtown San Diego. And if you look here on the left is an image of where the Green Dragon Colony is located, and it's just above the Cove. And how many of you have been to spend any time in La Jolla? Okay, I see one hand. And so I'm just going to, two hands. So when I was growing up, there was always a fascination with the cottages up in that area. The property she owned was actually this hillside. She paid $165 for it in 1895. And then she kept buying more properties. She ended up purchasing this, building the Green Dragon Colony house because she wanted at first to just have a space to have picnics. And then she wanted a fireplace. And then when she wanted a piano, she realized she couldn't have the piano outside, so she built a structure for it. And then she named it, and it was named the Green Dragon after a story by Beatrice Harridan. And it's not a story I'm familiar with, nor is the author, but then although I know some about literature of that period, like my favorite book is from 1894, which is Ramona. And so she built the house, and here where the arrow is showing is where the Green Dragon house is, just up on this hillside here. This is basically the Cove area. These two here are both Mitchell's, and these two here, and this is the same image. If you see, one's color, one's black, one's sepia. And then on the left side, these are both Detroit's. These three houses here, these cottages here, were built by three doctors who were friends. Actually, I had always thought growing up that these three cottages were part of the Green Dragon Colony, but it turns out, as I did my research for this, that I was wrong. This is the postcard that I had submitted to Lynn for the announcement of my Detroit talk that Shav liked so much. And to me, it's one of my very, very favorite Detroits. But at the time Anna Held lived in the late 19th century, there was another well-known Anna Held. And I want to thank Nancy Redden for sending me these postcards to use in my talk when she heard that it was about Anna Held, and so she sent me these, but it's not this Anna Held. And this is not the Anna Held that I'm going to be talking about. This Anna Held was an actress. She was Ashkenazi, born in Warsaw, but her family moved to Paris when she was a child due to the pogroms in Poland. And she was always kind of an unusual woman. She converted to Catholicism as a teen, and she started her career after first singing in the streets of Paris. She then, as a teen, went to sing in Yiddish theater, and she's probably best known for having been the common law wife of Florence Ziegfeld, and had actually come up with a lot of his ideas for his extravaganza shows. She met Ziegfeld when she was working in London, and then she moved to the US with Ziegfeld in 1896, and they lived in New York City. They were together for 10 years. And she was petite and noted for her tiny waist, and you can see how tiny it is there. And people felt that she must have had her ribs removed in order to have a waist that tiny. She had a daughter, Leanne, who also became an actress. And Leanne was the child of her first husband, Maximo Carrera. And she died of multiple myeloma at age 46. And then people had actually said, oh, it must have been due to how her waist was cinched due to her corsets, rather than the fact that she had a severe form of cancer. But it's about this Hannah Held. And these pictures were all from the book La Jolla Year by Year from 1955, which is almost the same age as me. And so this is what Anna Held looked like. And she's also in the window here, and she's watering her trees here in the lower picture. The writer of La Jolla Year by Year compared her to the actress and said, no, she's a German Fraulein and just frumpy. And so, which I think is kind of mean, but unlike the actress, supposedly she just was like a friend magnet, and she complained about having too many friends because it gave her no quiet time, no time to just be by herself. She studied kindergartening in Germany, where the whole concept of kindergartens actually began. And she came to the US and became a governess, and first for General William Jackson Palmer, who was family in Colorado Springs. General Palmer was actually the founder of Colorado Springs. So, and then because of the Palmers knew Grant's wife's family, Grant and his wife hired her to be the governess for their 5 children. And in 1892, they moved to San Diego, and she moved with them. And the Grants moved after the death of the president, the former president. And Fanny Chafee Grant was ill, and her doctors in New York had recommended that she move to a warmer climate. And so that's how they ended up in San Diego. And after Grant's children grew up, and I already mentioned about how she liked to take them to the Cove, she stayed on with the Grants as a companion to Josephine Chafee Grant. She collected dolls as her children who won't grow up. She felt, as I mentioned, she felt she had too many friends, which left her with no time to herself. And she married a musician, singer, Max Heinrich, after a whirlwind courtship. And she died in 1941 at the young age of 93. So again, quite the opposite of the actress. They moved here in 1892, and Fanny Grant purchased what was called the Horton House Hotel. Grant Jr. had wanted to rename it, but after his father, as a memorial building. And he then decided, well, he'll have a whole new building built. But after he got started, there was an earthquake in San Francisco, and they got priority for all the building supplies. So it didn't start till 1908, and it wasn't completed until 1910. Fanny Grant also purchased the Grant family's home called Amberley. And let me back up a little. And Fanny Grant was the daughter of a man who was the kind of a robber baron, in that in Colorado, he made a fortune in mining and real estate and banking, in that he was constantly, he was a wheeler dealer. And so it is basically what it was. So these are two views of the U.S. grant. One is a head-on, and the other one is slight angle. And this area here is the Palm Court, and it was an area for the women to have a place to relax. This one here shows a park across the street called Horton Plaza, and there's a fountain in the middle right here called the Wild Electric Fountain. And Wild was a mayor who was pretty unscrupulous, where he sold, and so he, not being able to go into City Hall, and instead worked from the Grant Hotel. Anna held, even though she was frumpy, she had a whirlwind romance with a singer, musician by the name of Max Heinrich. And she had gone to the home of a friend, and came home. And as she approached her cottage, which she had left unlocked, she heard piano music and singing, and found musician Max Heinrich and his daughter Julia, who was a renowned soprano, and she was just mesmerized. And they had reservations to be there, but and had found the door unlocked. So he saw the piano and the two of them sat down. He then left after his stay there for a tour of Europe, but he returned early because he was so besotted with her. And 3 weeks after meeting, and pretty much immediately after his return, and I think that they ended up there because this is Los Baños, and it's a bathhouse. And it was placed across the street from the train station because it was at the end of D Street, or which later became Broadway. And it was a kind of a destination, just like in San Francisco, the bathhouse is at the end of the trolley line or streetcar line. No, trolley line. So this was at the foot of the streetcar line, and he probably, Heinrich probably took the train down from LA and coming home or back to San Diego. So they were at Los Baños, and they decided to get married, and they found a church to get married at. And her friend and Fanny Chafee Grant threw them a wedding breakfast as their thing. So they really had no guests other than just the few people who lived nearby, because everyone else, it was too far away. And that's why the wedding breakfast was a big deal for them. And neither Max nor his children understood the concept of money. But Anna Held would tell people after Heinrich's death, tell young women that they should get married. And that it's expensive, but it's worth it. So these are more images of the Green Dragon colony. And this sign is something that's new, and I had found it when I was walking around La Jolla last October. And it may be the original sign for the colony. I haven't seen anything about that, but I just saw the picture. And then these are various images, including of the bathing women across the street from the colony. And this shows more of there were 12 structures included in the colony, the Green Dragon colony, and all of them were designed by probably none of you, unless you're an architect, have ever heard of it. Him is William Gill, and Gill is was one of the most popular architects of San Diego at turn of the century, of the 20th century. But they're all the structures are fanciful, just like this, the Ark House is. And this is just a different view. Of the original cottages, whether or not they were part of her community, both of these were, the Red Roost and the Red Rest were built by 2 of 3 doctors who had built cottages in a row there. The people who bought it wanted to tear the structures down and build a hotel on the site, but the structures were in the National Registrar of Historic Home structures, and so they couldn't. So they decided to just allow them to deteriorate by neglect. And actually La Jolla throughout time, but this was more recently, this was just in the 90s, has been known to have arson issues. And while you may not have heard of Anna Held Heinrich, you probably have all heard of Ellen Browning Scripps, who built Scripps College in Pomona, and also the Scripps Institution of Oceanography that's now part of UC San Diego. And this is what it looks like today. The cove is now kind of a breeding area for seals and sea lions. And these people down here on the sand in both pictures Again, these were taken in when I was in La Jolla in October. If they were down there, they would be arrested or fined for being on the beach if the seals and sea lions. So this is a caution sign because the seals and sea lions bite, and warning people to stay away from the area. That's it. Thank you.
That looks like a beautiful location, doesn't it, on that
Oh, it
picture?
is. It's one of my favorite places. And when I was in high school, and if I was feeling blue, as most kids feel in high school, I would come and just sit over here and at the cove. I mean, it really is beautiful there. And I think that's why it's the family who owns those 3 cottages just wanted to build a hotel there and take advantage of it.
So Roseanne, I was curious to find out, I know the pictures you took more recently, the place is pretty empty. So all of those buildings, those original buildings that were up on the cliff, those all just naturally deteriorated over a period of time and went back to a natural state rather than doing any building like you said, of a
No,
hotel.
I didn't take pictures along Prospect, which would be the main street that up on the top of the hill. It's
Oh,
all just solid buildings.
okay. And
Um,
some of the old buildings still remain though, you said, correct?
well, there's just those 2 that are so badly deteriorated. The
Oh,
rest are,
yeah, I was just curious about that. Also, you're talking about the colony or the Green Dragon colony. What exactly did they do there? Was there any was
she considered it an art and music colony.
oh,
And, but people, just like how she met her husband, would rent the cottages or a room in one of the buildings. So it was, they didn't have art classes, but they would have performances and things like that there.
oh,
They didn't have, and she was very friendly and gregarious. And I wish I had a picture that shows the hillside here, a modern one, because it is just so jam-packed, and the um, buildings that have been built in the last 50 years literally take up the full lot that they're on. And so they even encroach on the sidewalks. So where it used to be a favorite place for me, it's no longer one.
it changed over a period of time. Also, I was curious to know a little bit more about uh, you know, Ulysses Grant Jr., of course, was President Grant's son,
Correct,
and
his second son.
yeah, and his wife was Fanny, right? And
Right,
Fanny Grant was the one that helped um, helped her as with the wedding. Correct? Am I correct on that?
correct.
Oh, okay,
And also she bought the various places. She bought the Horton House Hotel,
okay,
and she purchased the family's home, which was a pre-existing estate just to the northeast of what is called Newtown or downtown, in an area that later became called Cortez Hill. And that's because after Fanny Chafee Grant died, a few years later, Grant Jr. remarried, and his new wife, didn't want to live there. So they sold the property and it was torn down and converted into later the hotel, the El Cortez Hotel.
Okay, okay.
Okay, listen, where did the name Green Dragon Colony come from?
It came from a book, a story by Beatrice Harrigan.
So it came from the book.
Yeah,
Okay, next question. What is that house with portholes that shows in your pictures?
that was one of her creative structures, and it's an ark.
An ark.
Yeah,
Huh. Well, what is
but I'm going to go back in, Clarice, and I'm going to go back to that and show you
there's
a different view. So this is the other side of the ark, where it's more of a regular structure.
what's on the other side?
Well, you have this side here, and then in the black and white postcard, you can see the chimney and the,
We don't see your black and white.
Well, what did she do with that building? What did it become as an ark?
oh, you know what? I don't know what it became because I had never had the opportunity to see it.
Okay. And one more question.
Sure.
That cove used to be a fine place for swimming, and now the seals and sea lions have taken it over. So where do those people in La Jolla go to the beach now? Or are there no beaches anymore?
Well, there are other beaches in La Jolla, but just not that section. There's another area. Oh, but I wanted to go, while I'm thinking of it, I wanted to show you this, and I selected this postcard, this Detroit postcard versus the an earlier version, which was a very early image, the 150. This is a 5150. And I'm showing it to you because even Detroits make mistakes.
Oh, yes.
And so they had the wrong name here. They covered it up and then redid the San Diego, California. And so for the train station across the street, which I didn't put in there, because I didn't take the time to find that postcard, it was flipped over. So both places had errors on them, but it's just that. It is what it is. So I'm trying to find other images of the hillside. I'm going to go into here. So you can see here the other buildings and above this.
We're not seeing it.
All right. So you see these structures here. These are the back sides of what was on the hill before. And I believe this would be the Hotel La Valencia. And next to the Hotel La Valencia is another large hotel called the Cabrillo. And you can also see here the backside of another large structure. And I think this one is actually a complex with restaurants and shops in it.
That's the
And-
Cove Hotel.
Is it?
Yep.
You must have spent a lot of time down here. Well, you're in LA, aren't you?
No, I'm up in Northern California.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to mention, Roseanne, Bob Snyder put a thing in the chat, and he has a kind of a photograph of what it looks like behind that area that you were talking about. So if you go into chat, you'll be able to see Bob's.
Okay, then I'm going to have to stop sharing to
photograph
get
now.
into chat. Oh, here's chat.
Well,
Sorry.
I'm just talking to people in general, not necessarily, you don't have to do it, but if
Okay.
somebody wants to see that, it's there.
I have another question.
Sure.
Did this La Jolla ever try to shoo away the sea lions and the seals so as to restore the cove?
No, because
Protected.
it's
Too bad.
Roseanne,
Well-
if I could just say Wow, great. Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I was just saying great presentation.
Oh, well, thank you.
The picture that I posted is at the top of the cove, there's a
Mhm.
park there. This is a little bit to the north of where your postcard pictures are, but it shows all of those hotels that are there now.
Mhm.
And if you're looking at the picture and you can't see it, of course, but to the right, not very far from this picture, you will see those
Oh, I see,
houses.
from the park at the cove.
Yes, yeah, and not very far from the right edge of this picture are those two old houses with those canvas covers, which you can see from that location. But when I was there in January, I had no idea. I just thought, well, look here, there's two rundown houses amongst all this new construction. But I had no idea at that point in time.
You had
the
no idea that they
significance of
were
those.
150 years old and
No, I knew they were old and I thought I had taken pictures of them, but right now I can't find them. But that's really interesting. I appreciate you telling us about them.
yeah, so anyway, these structures back here are a lot of more, they're condominiums more so than hotels right here. And but this structure here in the top right corner is the Hotel La Valencia.
I was happy to learn about the origin of the U.S. Grand Hotel name.
Yeah, I had always
stayed there
wondered
once.
about it.
I stayed there once ages ago.
I did a little quick read of an article right here, and it's wow, this is in a history that is really interesting that of that property, those cottages, there were 12 of them. I didn't get that the first time, and that's it. Pretty interesting. It was like a bohemian village. You kind of
Yes,
researched that
yes.
too?
And it wasn't like people could stay for however long. She preferred to have people who were musicians or artists because that's just who she was. That's
The
why
rooms
it
had
was a
themes.
colony.
Yeah,
So-
and those different rooms had different themes, or those different cottages had
Yes.
different themes. And
Yeah.
but so interestingly, if you do a Google search, the first article that comes up, you probably see is that La Jolla Light, a whole light. Um, and that's a great article there. At the very end, it says that these places after 92, all those cottages, the history is really colorful, really quick that you can see over the years. But then the last person who got that in 92 was all those last couple cottages were all raised down to basic just platforms. And in 1992 or 93, even Pete Wilson, when he was the governor, he signed legislation and cited that example of those historic buildings getting leveled as a
Because
reason
he
why.
was Mayor Pete. He was the
Yeah.
mayor of San Diego prior to being governor and senator and
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because he didn't want to see that happen again.
right. And so what you all probably don't realize is that La Jolla is not a separate city. They're part of the city of San Diego, but in joining San Diego, which they did because they wanted the services, because they water police and all the other things that cities provide, it's oh, I forgot where I was heading with this comment. But anyway, and I want to give you some more information that I hadn't remembered. She sold portions of the property. She had continually bought new lots as they came available, and then she sold them over the years. And then in 1926, a woman named Miss Josephine Seaman bought the entire colony to protect its beautiful trees. And the trees were planted with the help of Kate Sessions, who was a botanist horticulturist here in San Diego, who also planted Balboa Park.
Oh. Mhm.
So in fact, Kate Sessions had a deal with the city where she had to maintain X number of acres to have the use of the parkland.
So basically, I guess you can say that Anna Held was more or less a landlord, wasn't she? I mean, she owned that property and she rented it out to various people that were involved in art of one degree or another. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, there was a whole, it was kind of how in circles people would know, oh, well, you want to go stay in La Jolla. It's so beautiful there. And by the way, La Jolla does not mean the jewel, as the city that the town wants it to be thought of. But so yes, but she was very good with money, we'll just say. Just like Ellen Browning Scripps was she was incredibly good with money. She was good with investments, whereas her brother got all the notoriety because he started the Associated Press and this Scripps Howard news things. So, and Ellen Browning Scripps was another important woman of La Jolla.
Absolutely. That sounds like another topic for a presentation, might I suggest.
Yeah, I just don't have
I know.
I have, the pictures of Ellen Browning's home were taken by William Henry Jackson, but they weren't made into postcards.
Right. It's easier said than done, I know. Anyway, you did a great job and I
Thank you.
learned a
Even though
lot.
it got off on the wrong foot,
Oh.
I just,
Go ahead, Don. Go ahead.
What does La Jolla mean in Spanish?
it's actually not Spanish, it's Sicuan. It's a Native American language, as is Tijuana. And so, and I don't know what it means.
I was reading it was made some place of the caves.
Yeah.
Roseanne, are there any newer 1960s, 70s era postcards from this site that you've seen? You have
Oh, yeah. It's
80s?
just that I primarily have the old stuff. And this is from this topic was that, but I'm sure that when Don Price sent me some postcards the last year or 2 years, how long ago was it, Don? A couple years ago? And I didn't know him at that time. I just got this package and it was like, oh, what is this? And but there were some chromes of it, so I'm sure that if I were to go through my chromes, either sent by him or some that I bought when I was specifically collecting my Detroits, that were just included in with them. So, but I'll look for them and send them to you if you send. I don't know what I'm going to do with all these chromes.
Well, listen, you did a great job, and I appreciate you the time that you spent doing it, and I think all of us do. Is there any other questions that anyone has before we go? Yes, go ahead,
I was
Patrick.
just gonna, I really appreciate your presentation. I was just, I went down to La Jolla a lot a long time ago because of my grandfather lived down there.
Mhm.
And so he was part of, he actually lived about 3 miles from there. And So he belonged to, he was a La Jolla seniors club that he was always going to. And then they used to, and then I used to go there and used to look up at this house that was on the top. You'd go, God, what's that house up there on the tip top,
Oh,
on the
Mount
top of the
Soledad?
hill? I don't know what, all I knew is that was Theodore Geis's house. I think that's the right
Dr.
name.
Seuss, in other words.
That was his house. Yeah. And you just kind of look up and say, hey, that's the place I want to live. What's that place right there? And that was his house. So there's a lot of great places around there like that. And it's just it's a fantastic place. And then I liked it was the Sex Pistols. They had the seat towards the back at the Hard Rock Cafe that was there in La Jolla. They had Sid Vicious. They had his vest with his chain and the lock there at the cafe there. So we'd always get that seat that had that sitting there at the seat.
Oh, you
I'd
wanted
pay
to be in
extra.
Sid
I'd pay
Vicious's
extra to
booth?
go right there to sit at that table. So there's a lot of fun things in La Jolla.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember those two places. I didn't know the whole story, but there's so much stuff down there. It's incredible.
So someone had asked about, with the cove being taken over by the seals and sea lions, where do people go to the beach now? Well, there's down along La Jolla Boulevard and going into Pacific Beach, there are a number of beaches. And then the beach we used to go to when I was a kid was La Jolla Shores, which is up a couple miles and northeast of the cove. And when I was a kid, that was our Sunday afternoons, was going to the shores. So I do have fond memories of La Jolla, and I just don't go there that often.
Well, you did a great job, and we appreciated